authority. An important component of the putative apostasy, beginning in the patristic church, is the whole idea of authority. It is impossible to overestimate the importance of the concept of authority for Mormons. In fact, different Mormon denominations excommunicate other, it seems, over the question of who has the authority. The LDS believe the authority was passed on from Joseph Smith to Brigham Young and eventually to Thomas S. Monson. He's the current successor of Smith. In contrast, the Community of Christ believe in a different successor of Joseph Smith. Revelationally, in the Bible, there are two main types of authority: the authority of prophets and the authority of apostles. Each group, the prophets and the apostles, have authority to speak for God. The problem which the LDS don't seem to understand is that both offices are now obsolete. The office of prophet was primarily to look ahead to the coming of Christ, but he has already come. There is no need to foretell the coming of the one who has already come. John the Baptist is explicitly said to be the last of the prophets in the Bible, and he prepared the way for Jesus during the days of Jesus on earth. But Jesus is no longer on earth, so the time of the prophets is more or less over. Mormons shall counter by saying that the church has to be exactly the same throughout all of time. If there were prophets in the Old Testament, there must be prophets in the New Testament and today. However, while God doesn't change, as the Bible does teach, his method of dealing with us does change. At the beginning of Hebrews, we read, quote, "God, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son," end quote. We see here that God's mode of revelation was with respect to prophets in the Old Testament, but since the beginning of the New Testament, it was through Jesus. Now, the primary way we learn about Jesus today is through the apostolic testimony of the apostles, that is, of Jesus' 12 apostles in the New Testament. Jesus is not with us, neither are his apostles with us, but their writings about Jesus are with us today. Here again, the LDS will say that there are latter-day apostles to help us, modern, present-day apostles. But this is not possible. To qualify as an apostle, one had to be an eyewitness of Jesus. But this is not possible, as I said. And all the eyewitnesses died 2 millennia ago. In Acts chapter 1, verse 22, we read that an apostle must have witnessed the resurrection. Did Thomas S. Monson witness the resurrection of Jesus? Of course not. That is how we know he is not an apostle. And likewise for Joseph Smith himself. It is important to note at this juncture that the authority and teaching ministry of the apostles and prophets did not die with them. Excuse me, my throat. It did not die. It did not die with them, even though there are not prophets and apostles today. That kind of ministry does live on through the writings of the Bible. But how do we interpret the Bible? We interpret it the same way we interpret anything else. The historical grammatical hermeneutic may not be authoritative with apostolic authority, but it is reliable. Grammar and history is all the Mormon has too, in the final analysis. For how does the Mormon understand the authoritative pronouncements of the latter-day apostles like Monson? They use the regular, reliable, though not formally authoritative, methods of grammatical historical criticism. There is no need of a super apostle to interpret the scriptural interpretations of President Monson, and no need of a super duper apostle to interpret the interpretation of what the super apostle says, and so on. I submit to you we should go one step further and eliminate the latter-day apostle as well. Just like Christians in the apostolic period, we can all interpret the Bible for ourselves, and read Acts chapter 17 verse 11 for more on that. So in other words, how do you how do you understand what the Latter-day Apostles are saying unless you have a super apostle to interpret that for you? And how do you understand that unless you have a super duper apostle to interpret that? And so on. On infinite regress, you never understand anything. At any rate, if you are LDS, you will likely not accept the fact that apostles and prophets are not for today, as I've been saying. What you should accept, however, at the very least, is that later revelation cannot contradict earlier revelation, so that, hypothetically speaking, if a latter-day apostle or prophet gives a putative teaching from God which contradicts the Bible, they can't both be right, the Bible and the latter-day prophet or apostle. Revelation cannot contradict revelation. I hope to give some more specific details of this contradiction between putative sources of revelation and subsequent videos of this series. Shalom. And next we'll look at the times of Joseph Smith.